conduct its own investigation into his sacking. Tony Dempsey, why?
Oh, we've got a collective bargaining agreement with the ARU and the state unions which sort of governs the way in which the players are employed, including how they can be terminated. We've got some information to suggest we should investigate further whether or not the process was carried out in the proper way in which has been set out in that collective bargaining agreement. We need to be comfortable that it was done in the right way to ensure that there's no precedent set in the future that might give rise to a termination not in accordance with that procedure. So we're doing our job, and that's what we're there to do, and we're going to investigate it and hopefully come up with an answer to the situation.
We'll come back to that in a moment, but we did approach the ARU to have a representative here on the Rugby Club tonight to discuss the issues with RUPA, but they declined our offer, and the only comment to come out of the ARU since Takiri's sacking was a media release yesterday in response to RUPA's statement. It read, ARU appreciates that RUPA represents players' interests. Let them be assured this matter has been dealt with in a proper manner. Decisions over employment issues are not taken lightly. The ARU has also consistently stated it will not be going into details of the Lote Takiri termination due to the threat of legal proceedings. There are procedures under the collective bargaining agreement for RUPA to raise their concerns. It is happy to discuss those procedures with RUPA. ARU will not be making any further comment. So on face value, they're saying, well, talk to us.
Yeah, absolutely, and we will be. But we've got to do it in a proper way. We've got to do it in an official, formal way. I mean, there's independent legal proceedings going on, as we now learn, between Lote and the ARU, so we've got to be diligent in the way in which we approach this. But it's, Lote's a high-profile player, and he's certainly a member of RUPA, and it's the first time anyone's ever been summarily dismissed in the 15-year history of Australian rugby. Now, we as RUPA would be derelict in our duty if we weren't to investigate this and to make sure that the proper procedures are being followed for the future sanctity of the contract and the security of the players.
Demmo, what are the risks for Lote in this going to court?
Oh, look, I think the risks are the same as any plaintiff taking an action in the courts. Is the risks for any plaintiff are that they can lose the action, they can pay the legal fees of the defendant. Simple as that.
But any dirty laundry or dirty linen there may be will be aired in public also.
If the matter was to go to final hearing, it would. Whatever that dirty laundry might be, I don't know.
And what are the risks for the ARU in this going to court?
Oh, like any defendant in an action in the Supreme Court for breach of contract, substantial damages for loss of earnings.
There's been a lot of speculation in the press about the relationship between O'Neill and Takiri. Now, O'Neill's denied that there's any animosity there.
We're going to investigate that. That's part of the process. Has there been good faith exercised in the relation to the termination of the contract? There's a requirement under the collective bargaining agreement that all parties act in good faith and bona fide. We want to clear up and remove any speculation that there was some sort of malefides or any sort of malice, I suppose.
Yeah, but how are you going to find that out? Because in the press today, Lote's manager said that Lote will not be able to participate in your investigation, so you can't talk to the man.
No, that presents challenges, but there's more than just one person involved in this, and there's more than the ARU, and there's other people on the fringes of this, and we're going to do our best to investigate it. We have to be seen on behalf of our members to be investigating this and looking to be ensuring that the sanctity of the contract, the security of the contract is upheld. If we don't, we're not doing our job.
Now, also speculation, particularly in the rugby league newspapers, around the ARU just wanted to get rid of Takiri to save him $700-800 grand, $1 million bucks, whatever he was worth.
Yeah.
Rubbish?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. You'd need to ask John O'Neill. I don't know if that was a motivation in the whole situation or not. They say it's not, so on face value it's not.
Well, the ARU has certainly been tight-lipped, and as the Wallabies went into camp this week, they were none the wiser as to the absence of their former teammate.
The unfortunate thing for us is that no one in the group actually knows what has happened, and secondly, legally, can't make comment anyway. So for us, obviously a lot of us have been with Lote for a long time, all very close with him, good mates, and we feel for him going through this time and his family.
It's been of interest to them, obviously, and probably a bit of a distraction. But now that we're together, they're aware that it's not their issue. It's an ARU matter, and the AAU are dealing with it.
And also in the RUPA statement yesterday, you mentioned that some of the Wallabies are living in fear after Lottie's termination today. There's been reported in the press that no, fear is probably a strong word.
Yeah, no, the Wallabies aren't in fear of the senior management, and they're not intimidated by them. I mean, these guys play against the All Blacks and the Springboks. And they have, in fact, a very good relationship with the team management of the AAU, the Wallabies, and they work together harmoniously and very, very well. And the mindset and the focus of the Wallabies, and I spoke to Sterling this afternoon, is all about the Tri-Nations that's coming up, and their training has been, he tells me, excellent. So there's no suggestion there. What there is, however, is uncertainty as to what actions it takes to terminate a contract. And when you have that uncertainty, you can have some anxiety. We need to resolve the uncertainty so players don't have anxiety moving forward, so future players don't have anxiety, and they have security of knowing what is acceptable behaviour and what's not. That's going to lead to summary termination.
So, Demmo, is there a 3 strikes and you're out policy in the collective bargaining agreement? Depends how severe the incident is? What's the rules behind that?
Yeah, the rules for summary determination include if you've abused or assaulted a referee, for example, if you've brought the game into quite severe disrepute, if you've repeatedly breached the terms of the contract, then you might find yourself being summarily dismissed. Match fixing is another one. If you're caught to have been match fixing, you could be summarily dismissed. The question will be, before the court, is whether or not the alleged breaches that Lottie's made are so serious and repeated enough as to give rise to and warrant a termination of the contract summarily.
So it's not in writing, 3 strikes and you're out?
Not in the contract, no.
Okay, but at the press conference of the AAU last week, John O'Neill did say that he sent a letter to Lottie after an incident leading up to the 2007 Rugby World Cup where Lottie was sort of placed under a curfew, and we've seen the headline, last chance Lottie. So it would appear that they do work under 3 strikes and you're out.
Well, I'm assuming the AAU have had legal advice and the benefit of that before they've taken the action they have, and I'm sure that they're comfortable with the benefit of that advice. As I said, at the end of the day, we all have to have faith in the confidence and integrity of the judicial legal system here in Australia, and that the judge will make the right decision in this particular case.
Given Clarkie just said last chance Lottie, what are his choices now in terms of his future? Because there are a certain number of dates, aren't there, as to when you can sign up players both in Europe and in the NRL. Where does he go?
Yeah, I think from what I can understand, his options in NRL are fairly limited this year. I think David Gallop's already said that, given the cut-off date of 30 June. And I understand also in the French League, the top 14 over there, the cut-off date has been passed there. So
sorry, Demmo, so as from 30 June this year, he cannot play the remainder of an NRL season.
That's right.
But he can go into contract for next year's
Correct, season. That's right, yeah. And that'll be something that'll be the subject of mitigation questions.
It's very early days, but there's so much hearsay, but from what you know, as little as it might be at this stage, like all of us, are you confident that this can be overturned and Lottie Dakiri can be playing for the Waratahs in 2010 and the Wallabies for some time in the future?
I don't like to speculate on any remedy in any proceedings or what might happen in a result of discussions between New South Wales Rugby Union, the ARU and the player himself. I know that a lot of the fans would love to see Lottie back in the Waratah colours and the Wallaby colours if he's good enough. And I know certainly the Waratah teammates would love to see him back as well. Whether that'll happen or not, I couldn't really speculate.
Yeah, for viewers sitting at home, hearing you say that there is a collective bargaining agreement and the ARU have put in their statement that RUPA are entitled to chat to us about this, we'll be open and frank with them. People might be thinking, well, why don't you just pick up the phone?
Yeah, well, the ARU on record is saying they're not prepared to discuss the matters already, so that's straight away an indication that they're probably not prepared to discuss it. But there may be a breakthrough between now and the next week or two where there are discussions between RUPA and the ARU on this matter. There's indications as recently as this afternoon that our president, Rod Kafer, might be having some chats with the ARU's chairman, Peter McGrath. So that's a step in the positive, in the right direction. And I think we take a lot of comfort in that response from the ARU, and it's a move in the right direction.